Welcome. We're the Lactamish people.
On the shore of the Salish Sea.
These are the native waters of Quethalmachan, orcas.
Members of the Lummi Nation and others pray for the return of someone they consider family. A southern resident orca that was captured from these waters more than 50 years ago.
This is her home, not in Miami, the cement tank. That's not where she belongs. We ache for our relative. So it was important today to gather to send prayers to Scully Chucktanut to let her know we're coming for her.
The Lactamish people call her Scully Chucktanut. But here in Miami, where she's been held in captivity for the last 50 years, she's Lolita. She's legal property of the Miami Seaquarium.
When you are close to her, you can feel the sadness that she's just hanging on. It is just taking a lot longer than we had ever hoped.
Scully Chucktanut's story begins in 1970, around the time King 5 began investigating orca captures in Puget Sound.
We had aircraft flying over the San Juans to spot them, boats with explosives to separate the adults from the babies.
It was during one of these captures, Scully Chucktanut was violently taken from her family in Washington's Penn Cove. She was just 4 years old.
They only wanted the babies. She is the longest living orca in captivity. When she was brought to a pen on the dock by the harbor, she was crying. Her mother was crying. People around Penn Cove, the older people can still hear the cries, the screams.
The whole capture itself, how traumatizing would that have been?
Terribly traumatic. Pain on the side of their heads when those bombs are going off.
Howard Garrett, co-founder of the Orca Network, showed us photos from some of those whale captures in the early 70s.
The older females would gather around the young ones and try to protect them. They knew what was happening.
Since her capture, Scully Chucktanut has lived mostly alone here at the Miami Seaquarium.
It's shallow. There's nowhere in her tank that's deep enough that she can dive.
Ellie Kinley and Raynell Morris are Lummi tribe members who have visited Scully Chucktanut in Miami.
You know you're not alone.
You'll see that there's 2 umbrellas for the trainers that are working with her, but yet there's no shade for her.
According to a 2021 inspection report, she's fed poor quality rotten food. The water in her tank is dirty, and her trainers disregarded veterinary instructions to make her perform despite injuries.
This is an extreme case of torture and abuse. She's been treated very, very badly by a lot of the staff.
In March, the Dolphin Company purchased the Miami Seaquarium. As a condition of the sale, the company had to retire Scully Chucktanut. For now, she remains in Miami. The company did not return our request for comment.
She has now gone from the corporate books from an asset to a liability. So that's a huge incentive for them to come to the table and want to partner with us.
Scully Chucktanut's advocates are working to get an independent veterinarian to assess her condition and determine whether she could safely make the 3,000-mile journey back home.
It's been done since the 1960s. Hundreds of times orcas have been transported by plane.
First, Scully Chucktanut would be coaxed into a custom-made stretcher and lifted out of her Miami aquarium with a crane. The 20-foot, 7,000-pound orca would then be lowered into a small container not much bigger than herself, filled with ice water to prevent overheating. From there, she'll be loaded onto a cargo plane for a 6-hour trip to the Bellingham airport. Next, onto a barge, which will transport her to her ancestral waters in the Salish Sea. Her new home will look very different than the cement aquarium she's spent the last half-century in. The plan, created in collaboration with wildlife researchers and marine mammal veterinarians, calls for a netted underwater pen, 250 feet long, 100 feet wide, and 30 feet deep in fresh ocean water.
The scent of the cedar brings the salmon home. And that scent travels across the water to her. She's home. It's calling her home, like it calls the salmon home.
Here at home and in Miami, a special call from her family.
And when we went to Miami in 2020, we brought our cedar with us to put it in to the water outside of her tank. So Skelly Chucktanut would smell that cedar. Skelly Chucktanut! And know that's home. Skelly Chucktanut! She's 56. She has 37 plus beautiful years left of her life. When she comes home, she'll feel comforted. Her struggle's over. I can see it.
On the horizon, advocates hope for a reunion. A half century in the making.